What's your best customer isn't always right story? I worked at a Cold Stone Creamery one summer, and I loved the job through and through. Best job ever. I lived in a desert town, and people were so stoked to be getting something to cool off that they didn't even complain about long lines or anything. One day, a girl came in and ordered an item that had hot fudge. I would always mix in the other ingredients and put the fudge on top over it so that it wouldn't melt the ice cream. She requested specifically that I mix in the fudge. I hand her her order and she looks at it and says, "It's all melted." I say, "I'm sorry, I can remake it and just pour the fudge over the top." She says, "Please remake it but still mix in the fudge." I point out we're probably going to be having the same conversation in about 2 minutes about how hot things melt ice cream, but she insists. I redo her order the way she requested. She looks at it again and, predictably enough, complains that it's melted. I say, "Okay, I'm sorry, but I am unable to keep hot things from making ice cream melt." Then this girl tells me, no offense, but she would rather have a coworker remake it. I get my manager and explain what's happening. He offers to remake it. You can guess what happened. After the third bowl of melted ice cream doesn't meet her approval, she says she maybe just wants a different item. The manager says he's not giving her a fourth item if she only paid for one, so she demands her money back. He says no, so she calls us both names and storms out. I guess she was hoping for ice cream that defies physics? Whatever. Story 2. Worked at a popular cafe, so we got unreasonable customers all the time. Once a man flagged me down and started shouting about this weird worm in his pie. I took a quick look at the pie and noticed it was actually a piece of onion. After a couple of minutes of calming the man down, I asked him what sort of pie he ordered. He ordered beef and onion. He had me swap his half-eaten beef and onion pie for another beef and onion pie because of it. Another time I was delivering a large tray of food to a table. Everything is going fine, just a couple of sandwiches. As I'm about to walk away, the older guy at the table grabs my attention and the conversation goes something like this. Guy, "Is this cheese sandwich dairy-free?" Me, "As far as I'm aware, we don't do dairy-free cheese, so no." Guy, No, I mean, does it have any milk products in it?" Me, Yeah, it's got cheese and butter." Guy, "Well, can you bring it back without the dairy products?" Me, "So you want your cheese sandwich without any dairy products?" Him, "Yes." I promptly returned it to my manager, let her know the situation, and said, "Good luck figuring that one out." Okay, so for anyone wondering, the second guy in the story wanted his cheese sandwich without any milk products. His cheese sandwich without cheese, that's kind of made from milk, so it's part of the sandwich, right? Story 3. I worked for an airline when a customer called in wanting to go to a city we don't fly to. No problem. I tell him we fly to a different city and then they can take another airline to their final destination. He starts screaming, "You knew? How can you be so stupid? I am on your website and you do fly there." I explained that I had been employed a mere 25 years with that airline, but I'm always earning. Then I directed the customer to click on the connecting flight number, then read to me what it said. Flight 123, operated by other airline. Oh, why he didn't just book it himself online will become relevant later. We continued on and I made the reservation. This customer complained every time I had to ask for info or say a federally mandated notification. Nothing unusual about that. I did politely ask him to keep his volume down because I could not help him with him being so loud. Then I asked for the credit card number to complete the purchase. He started screaming again that he was not giving me his credit card. He was using his bank miles that cannot be accessed by me or the airline. I explained that his bank took his miles, then called us and actually purchased the ticket with actual money. He went totally insane. I let him know if he didn't clean up his language, I was going to hang up on him. He then asked for a supervisor, which was me. The coworker I begged to take this call explained the situation calmly. I listened in. Then the customer said, "I already tried calling the bank reservation line and they said I couldn't do it. Then they hung up on me." Believe it or not, most of my customers were lovely. This one, not so much. Story 4. A lady walked into our restaurant just an hour before we were about to close. She told us she was planning to have her bridal shower there with 60 guests arriving in just 15 minutes. We explained to her that we already had a wedding party in our private room which could only seat 50 people, and that we would try our best to help her, but we weren't prepared to serve such a large group all at once, especially so late at night. The lady seemed upset and said she had sent out invitations 2 months earlier. Our manager responded by saying that we hadn't received any notice from her, and that while we would do what we could to serve her group, their meals wouldn't all be ready at the same time. The lady wasn't happy and started complaining that we were ruining her dinner. It was pretty funny, honestly. In response to her rudeness, our manager told her that we would help her, but because her party was so large and she hadn't given us any notice, we would need to add a mandatory 30% tip, and we would only stay open long enough for her group to eat their food plus an extra 20 minutes. The lady got really angry and left the restaurant. However, many of her guests ended up staying and having dinner with us because they didn't have any other place to go. We didn't make them pay the mandatory tip we had mentioned. Most of them were very nice and even left us tips of at least 20%, which was really kind. Several of them also wrote great reviews about our restaurant, saying how helpful our staff was and how much they enjoyed the food. It was a great outcome in the end. Story 5. A customer came to our restaurant and ordered a bowl of soup to take home. Unfortunately, we were very busy at the time and had run out of the kind of soup she wanted. I told her it would take a while to prepare, at least 10 minutes, because we needed to heat up a new batch of soup. She said that was okay and she would wait. Just 2 minutes later, she asked me where the soup was. 2 minutes after that, she asked again. I started to get annoyed and told her we would try to speed things up by using the microwave. But 2 minutes later, she asked once more, "Where's my soup?" I explained to her that the soup was in the microwave, but it would still need a bit more time to heat up properly. She didn't seem to understand and actually told me to make the microwave go faster. Feeling frustrated, I decided to take the soup out of the microwave a little earlier than I should have. It wasn't hot yet, but at that point I didn't really care. I just wanted to get her the soup so she would stop asking. Our restaurant has different containers for soup depending on whether you eat in or take it to go. The to-go containers are taller and narrower, while the in-house bowls are wider and flatter. However, the amount of soup you get is the same in both containers. It's always 2 ladles full. When I gave the customer her soup, she wasn't happy. She complained that it looked like less soup than what she would get if she ate in the restaurant. She didn't think it was fair to pay the same price for what seemed like less soup just because she was taking it to go. I tried to explain to her that the amount of soup was the same regardless of the container. It's a basic idea called conservation, which most people learn around an early age. But this grown woman looked at me with suspicion as if she thought I was trying to trick her. She kept saying, "But the bowls in the house are bigger." In the end, she took her soup and left, but about half an hour later, she came back saying her soup was cold. After dealing with all this, I decided I didn't want to work there anymore. It was just too much hassle for a simple bowl of soup. Story 6. I used to work at a gas station where most of the pumps were new and modern, but there was one old pump that was a bit different. This old pump had a lever under the nozzle that you had to flip up to start the pump. From my position at the register inside, I could see if someone was trying to use a credit card at the pumps. One day, a lady came into the station and told me her card wasn't working at the pump. I explained to her that she needed to flip up the lever for the pump to start. She said she had already put her card in, and I told her that the transaction would be canceled after a short time to avoid any mistakes. She didn't seem to understand what I was saying and kept repeating that she had already put her card in. I tried to explain it to her a few more times, but she wasn't getting it, and I was really busy with other customers. There was a long line forming behind her, so I decided to help the next person in line. The lady stormed out, went back to her car, and managed to get her gas after doing what I had told her. She came back inside, looking angry, and waited in the line she had caused. When she got to the front again, she asked for my name in a sneering way. I told her my name was Patrick, and she demanded my full name. I asked for her full name in return, and after she told me, I said it didn't matter because I was the only Patrick working there. She said she would make a complaint because she thought I was rude. I took a moment to explain to her that she had come in, I had told her what to do, she had gone back out and followed my instructions, and she had gotten her gas. I also mentioned that if I hadn't been so busy, I would have gone outside to help her personally. She didn't believe me and left the station. Alright, if you're enjoying the video and feeling any one of these storytellers so far in this video, please don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 7. I used to be a gymnastics coach, and most of the families I worked with were upper middle class or even wealthier. There was this one lady, a blonde housewife, who would always find a way to bring up how much money her husband made whenever she talked to me or anyone else. One time, she told me that her husband wanted to know why they were charged 13 times for the monthly tuition fees the previous year. I explained to her that we charged every 4 weeks, not every month, and that this was clearly stated in the contract they signed and in all the information we provided about our classes and fees. A few days later, her husband came into the gym, acting all demanding and wanting an explanation for why he thought he was overcharged the year before. He wasn't happy with the explanation I had given his wife. He was a big, powerful salesman or something like that, and he seemed to think he could easily prove that I was wrong or that we were doing something shady with our business. I patiently explained to him again that we charge tuition every 4 weeks, not once a month. I pointed out there are 52 weeks in a year, and if you divide 52 by 4, you get 13. He still didn't understand, so I had to get a calendar and show him the weeks and how the charges added up. He got upset and left without saying much more. That happened about 4 years ago, and as far as I know, they still bring their kids to our gymnastics classes. Story 8. At a Starbucks where I work, there's an extra charge of 50 cents if you want your drink made with special milk, like half and half. This charge is actually a good deal because using half and half can be quite a lot. If someone made their drink at home, they might use up half a gallon of it every week. There was this one customer who always caused trouble about this charge. He thought he shouldn't have to pay extra for something that was available for free at the condiment bar, where people usually just add a little bit to their coffee, not a whole 14 ounces. Because he was so difficult, we often didn't charge him the extra 50 cents just to avoid any problems. One very busy morning, a cashier accidentally charged him the extra 50 cents for his special milk. She was so busy dealing with the orders that she didn't even realize she had done it. About 20 minutes later, the man came back to the counter and started yelling at her for charging him extra. He went on and on for like 10 minutes. The poor cashier was so upset that she started crying and gave him free drink coupons just to get him to stop and leave her alone. Even after that, she still had to keep working the register because it was the busiest time of day and the line of customers was very long. Everyone else was nice to her and understood what had happened, but she was really shaken up for hours after the incident. She continued to be upset about it for weeks afterward. Unfortunately, the man wasn't banned from the store for his behavior. He even had the nerve to come back the very next day. He became one of those customers that everyone knows can be a problem. Story 9. At Blockbuster, there was this woman who would rent video games and keep them for so long that they would be removed from our inventory. When that happened, she would be charged for the cost of the games, but every time she would complain and say she had returned the games weeks earlier. My boss, who was too soft, would always cancel the charges for her. Then, as if by some miracle, the games would appear in the drop box the very next day. This happened over and over again with this lady. I even made notes on her account every time it occurred. Finally, there was one time when I decided I had enough and refused to cancel the charge for her. I told her I was tired of her playing this game with us. She called my boss to complain, and even though he listened to my side of the story, he still told me to remove the charges for her. The next day, just as expected, the game was in the drop box. I told my boss it happened again, and instead of taking action, he transferred me to a different Blockbuster store. A few months later, the woman's daughter came into my new store wanting to rent the movie American Pie. I had told her that she couldn't rent that movie because it was for adults and she needed to have an adult come in to rent it for her. She went outside to her mom, who I could clearly see through the window, and told her what I said. The mom gave me the nastiest look, then quickly drove away without renting anything. Story 10. I work as a flight attendant on long-haul flights, and I had an experience with a passenger who had let her daughter sleep on the floor of the aircraft. I kindly asked the mother to pick up her child because it wasn't safe, but she insisted that it was and said she had done it many times before. Things got really heated when I continued to insist that she needed to put her daughter in a seat. It took about 20 minutes of back and forth, walking up the whole plane and even getting the captain and the purser involved. We had to threaten to restrain the mother to get her to calm down. Finally, we were able to get the daughter into a seat with a pillow that I found in the aircraft storage. The reason we can't allow anyone to sleep on the floor is because if there's a sudden loss of cabin pressure, the oxygen masks won't reach down to the floor. In a really bad situation, a person only has about 4 seconds before they start to fall down. That means the mother wouldn't have enough time to take off her own mask, bend down, pick up her daughter, and get the daughter's oxygen mask on. This is also why we tell passengers to put on their oxygen masks before helping others. It's much easier to help someone else when you're still conscious. Story 11. One summer, I had a job at a store in Texas. One day, I was lucky enough to help a lady who was buying organic plums. Now, the usual price for non-organic plums was $3.99 per pound, but the organic ones were much more expensive. They were $6.99 per pound. When I tried to scan the organic plums, they didn't show up in our system, so I told the lady that I would just charge her the price for the non-organic plums instead. But she said no. I explained to her that I could use the code for regular plums, so she would only pay $3.99 per pound instead of $6.99, and she would still get the organic plums. She still wasn't happy and asked to see a manager. When the manager came over, he tried to enter the code for the organic plums, but it didn't work either. He suggested, let's just ring them up at the regular price so you'll pay $3.99 per pound. But she said, again, no. The manager was confused and asked, so you don't want the fruit anymore? She replied, I want the fruit, but I want to pay the organic price. The manager couldn't believe it and asked again to make sure. I've offered you the regular price of $3.99 per pound, but you still want me to charge you the $6.99 per pound for the organic plums? She said, yes, I want the organic plums and I want to pay the price that's on the shelf. So the manager did what she asked. He manually entered the weight and the organic price per pound into the system and then walked away. You should have seen the lady's face. It went from angry when she was demanding to be charged more to smug after she thought she had won the argument and then to surprised when the total for the plums came to $16. After that, her face just looked like she was thinking, oh, I guess this is my life now, as she paid quietly and didn't look at anyone while she took her bag and left the store. Yeah, lady won the argument, but at what cost, right? Story 12. In our bakery, we have a special policy for first responders like police officers, firefighters, and EMTs. They get their first item for free as a thank you for their service. So if a police officer comes in for a slice of pie and a cup of coffee, we'll only charge them for the coffee and give them the pie for free. Or if a paramedic wants a half dozen donuts, we'll only charge them for 5. The only rule is that they need to show us some proof that they are first responders. Most of the time, people take advantage of this policy when they're either on duty or just got off, so we don't even ask for proof because they're already in uniform. But everyone has some kind of ID they can show when they're not in uniform, so it's usually not a problem. One day, a police officer in full uniform came into our bakery and we gave him a slice of cake and a latte for the price of just the latte. He's a regular customer, so we chatted for a bit. He asked about my business partner and I asked how his shifts had been going, just, normal small talk. After he sat down, a couple asked why he was only charged $3 for his order. I explained our policy to them and they told me that one of them was a police officer and the other was a detective in a small city in our state. I told them that was nice, but our policy only applies to first responders who work in our city or the nearby areas. They got really upset and started yelling about how unfair it was and that we were being biased against them for no reason. They demanded to speak to the manager. I told them I was the owner, but they didn't believe me and insisted on talking to the real manager. This went on for a while until my police officer friend stood up and asked to see their badges. They stumbled over their words for a minute or two and he asked again to see their badges, this time more firmly. Neither of them had their badges with them. He then asked for any ID that would prove they were police officers and a detective like they claimed. They couldn't show him any proof. He looked at me and said, they're lying about who they are and I strongly suggest you don't serve them. The couple quickly left the bakery, looking embarrassed. Well, if any of these stories got to you, especially that last one, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video, yeah? And thanks for hanging out with me on this one.